I'm Leigh Brown. Welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. Let's visit New York City, shall we? In fact, right near Central Park and the New York City Marathon finish line is where you will find this amazing realtor. Scott Harris is here to talk with us a little bit about really a lot of things. It was a really fun conversation, runs all over the place. So get your notebook and notepad, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello.
Scott, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm just fantastic. I'm just going to turn my phone over so I'll stop seeing the text and the messages coming in because of the great excitement around real estate right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
Yep, I kind of wish I weren't on the executive committee because I would do my own crazy shit in real estate podcast about things, but I've got to be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove.
Okay. What executive committee is that?
Of the National Association of Realtors.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. You're in a I'm just writing. I wrote an op-ed for the journal that we're hoping to get published there. The statistics do not bear out with what, some of the people against buyer representation have to say. I mean, and my experience in 20 years of being in a capacity representing buyers, it just does not jibe with.
No, I mean, the idea that there is a belief that you can commoditize real estate and buy it off the internet is a complete lack of understanding of the complexities of the transaction. Right. But whose fault is that for not telling that story? So we as agents should have told that story more effectively over the years. I totally grant that. But if you ask any of my clients, I bet if I ask any of yours, if they had the time and energy to learn all those complexities before they got into it, they'd be like, no, you purchase the professional services for a savings of time and a savings of knowledge and competence. And I mean, the idiots on the internet, my favorite was, where's the guy that was in the New York Times today? He said, if commissions are lowered, this is my favorite, the price of every home will come down, jobs and wages will go up, tax revenues will increase, and people can move to better and more fulfilling jobs. Wait, what?
Yeah, how do you get, I don't know how you get from one to the other.
But you know what? That narrative is just not being questioned. And so, it's craziness. But also in our businesses, we're working every day, juggling 1,000 balls, and we don't have the time and bandwidth to go fight with people who make bad statements in the New York Times. And so the narrative is hard to control.
Well, I would say this. I looked into the statistics. The percentage of buyers who've hired brokers to represent them, who have brokers to represent them, is for people aged 25 to 44 is actually in the vicinity. It's north of 90%, 94%. They have no idea what they're doing.
Right. They start here.
I
start here and they look at apps and think they can, then they get 2 steps in and like, nope.
I'm done. People might start here. Sure, they might start on their own, and God bless them. But there's a reason why people advertise on bus stops still, and why Zillow made $8 billion, I think, in 2021. It's because we advertise because we know that buyers ultimately aren't able to navigate this on their own. Why would they?
I wouldn't. I mean,
I hire brokers all that. I've hired amazing agents to represent me on both sides. And if they do a great job, then I screamed from the rooftops.
I found a good one.
And by the way, they're not all good.
No. So that's part of the conversation.
Let's elevate this.
Realtors have to make that choice and say, you know what? I do a great job. I wish everybody else did. We have to acknowledge there's mediocrity out there. But there's also a consumer that would rather pay less for a mediocre agent. That's great. They have that option in the marketplace.
I guess, but you know what? My view is it's kind of like it's hard to argue what you can't ever quantify, right? Like people hire somebody mediocre or they hire a discount, whatever it is. They don't know what they could have saved on a transaction.
Great point.
And they don't know that they bought the wrong house. because it's not always about the cheapest house. Is that the right house for you?
Right. And location and floor plan. Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you watch any documentaries on Netflix?
Do I watch documentaries on Netflix? Yeah, of course.
So have you watched that new one they're talking about that Chinese clothing company, Shein?
No, I missed that.
How old are your kids?
I have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and a lower schooler.
Is your high schooler a girl?
Yes.
She knows what Shein is. It's this super cheap.
I always thought it was pronounced shine.
Well,
S-H-E-I-N.
S-H-E-I-N. And so
I've seen the name. I just didn't know it was pronounced Shein.
I didn't either till I watched the documentary, so now I can say it right. But I guarantee she knows it because they do fast fashion,
right?
And it's talking about it's not great quality stuff, and there's all these hidden fees in it. And when you're talking about the price isn't the ultimate thing, all I can think about is fast fashion because they're knocking off designers and they're doing things really cheaply in sweatshops. And the person who's only ever owned crap has no idea that the designer's quality is stitched differently and the material has a different hand to it. And you're getting the intellectual property of that designer. And I don't think any of us know that when we're young. You kind of age into knowing that, man, I might want to pay a little bit more for this because I want the quality over time. But I may come in with real estate too, because the young people dominating that conversation about housing they don't understand why things cost what they cost and how values vary from place to place also comes from inexperience in the markets because there's an inexperience factor there. But
there's this wonderful speech in one of my favorite movies, The Devil Wears Prada.
I love that movie.
Where the Anna Wintour character, the editor of the magazine, talks about Anne Hathaway's cerulean blue sweater.
Oh, that's right. That it came from this.
And it's like, oh, you think you picked it up off this rack and whatever, but you don't know that it came from this and through this. And then she actually curates where that came from, and they have no idea about it. Oh, it's just some sweater, but it's like opening the door. It's kind of, I could give a million different.
I love that one. I never thought about that.
A million different ways in, but I was a kid watching old movies. Orson Welles, did this movie, this movie about William Randolph Hearst, like the most famous black and white, movie ever. Or I don't know, Kurosawa, like these old Japanese directors, and it's black and white. And I'm like, oh, it's black and white. Like, why is this important? And then, any film buff out there is like, it's important because they totally broke the mold and changed the way we think about it. And there's just so much taken for granted. Look, I watch some of these reality shows and they talk about, oh, your budget's this. And you're like, nothing is real. Nothing can happen for that much money. And then you look at the finishes and you're like, oh, this is garbage. It's going to fall apart in like 5 seconds.
Oh, my favorite is when they put in granite countertops and they make it out of 12-inch granite tiles for the bathroom floor. Like that's not a granite countertop in any way, shape, or form. Oh, yes. You're right about that. Okay. So what part of Manhattan are you in?
My office. Yes, I'm in Manhattan, New York City. I worked with a firm called Brown Harris Stevens, which is the oldest real estate company in New York. It's 150 years old. And my office is right across from Lincoln Center. So if you walk in, it's on 65th and Broadway. So we're a half a block from Central Park. And, it's like it's a playground for the wealthy in New York City. We're a beat from Central Park where they're going to finish running the New York City Marathon. Right where the finish line is. It's an exciting, dynamic place.
Have you run New York?
I have run New York 7 times so far.
Thank you. I've not run New York yet. I've run Chicago twice, and my 7th marathon is this weekend, but New York's on my list. I have to lottery in though, because I guess I could fundraise in, but I'm on a lottery in because I'm stubborn like that. All right. So are you one of the Harrises of Brown Harris Stevens? That's your family line? I'm a Harris. I'm not the Harris. Right. So I came to
The Harris in the name is a very old, part of the company.
100.
It's actually not owned by Brown, Harris, or Stevens anymore. It was purchased. There's a wonderful ownership group there that's led by Will and Arthur Zeckendorf, who've been multi-generational builders in New York City. They built the UN. They've built a number of really prominent residential buildings throughout Manhattan. And is privately held as opposed to a lot of big real estate companies around the country.
So fun fact, I used to live at 37th and Lex, way down in Bury Hill.
Uh-huh.
It's been about 30 years ago, so it looked a little different then than it looks now, because now it's gotten all cutened up. It was not super cute then, but I could afford it.
Yeah, Murray Hill is it's come a long way. 37th and Lex. I've sold properties right around there. It's got a lot of history though, depending on what block you're on. There are a lot of beautiful old townhouses.
We were not a beautiful old townhouse. We were in, actually, it may have been a townhouse that had been carved into apartments, and there were 4 of us ladies who shared 1-bedroom apartment, and we took turns. Everybody slept at different hours. You could use the bed.
How far we've come.
I mean, I'm glad I lived it, though. I tell my kids all the time, and they think, Mom, it didn't really happen that way. I'm like, it did. And I also had cocktails at Windows on the World, which they can't get their minds around because they weren't born when 9/11 happened. So to them, it's in the history books, which is hard for me to acknowledge that, I was working at Seaport Plaza at Prudential, and we used to go there to prospect for clients.
Interesting. Yeah.
Okay. So back to your real estate journey there, right close to Central Park. What got you into real estate? How long have you been into the game?
So I've been in real estate for over 20 years. I celebrated my 20th anniversary at the beginning of 2023. I will say that I was sort of accidentally building a whole skill set to be in residential real estate long before I got into it. My mom was a marketing director for what was a Prudential affiliate in Louisiana, New Orleans, where I grew up. And my dad was a landlord of a big commercial warehouse when I was a kid. So we were talking this stuff around the dinner table growing up. But I was really into architecture, grew up in New Orleans where there's lots of cool French and Spanish architecture. And my best friend grew up in the French Quarter. And, that was just in my, all those old houses were always, they were just things that like attracted me. But I didn't get into real estate until someone in my family said to me, my stepmother said, "Hey, Scott, you'd be really good as a real estate agent." And I had spent a bunch of years before that booking bands and being in a band and being in the music industry. So I moved to New York in 2002, late 2002, and was kind of at the end of my rope thinking, what am I going to do? And I started doing rental deals, like helping people find rentals in New York, which is a way you can actually make a living. It was such a hustle. It was a 7-day-a-week crazy thing to start doing, but I was really, really good at it. And it just pulled from everything I'd ever done before. All of a sudden, it was like pop, pop, pop. It just made a lot of sense to me, helping people find homes. We can talk more about that.
Okay, so I'm so curious, though. You said your life history added up to make sense for residential real estate. What is the connection between booking bands and real estate? I haven't made that yet.
Sure. So, as a kid, I was this entrepreneurial guy. Like 7th grade, it was like the school had like an economics fair, and I was like the guy selling out of like nachos. Like I always was thinking, what would somebody want, and like what would thinking about other people and how to find something that worked for them. And I was always building businesses. When I was in my band, I grew that band into something that was a 250 show a year touring band. I was always thinking about how to build business, how to market. So like all of my email marketing and organizing my client list, because I was putting bands on college campuses and putting bands into clubs everywhere and like navigating the touring, right? So putting bands on tour is no different than putting buyers on tour around the city, and dealing with decision makers, trying to understand the psychology of it. I was a psychology major in college. And so how to understand people, what makes them tick. But like the most essential piece is that as a kid, my parents were split up. I moved about 500 times back and forth and back and forth and back and forth before I even turned 18, and that for me, understanding how unsettling being not having a real place of your own, and then spending the better part of 6 years on the road with the band. It was like all I ever wanted was a place. And so that energy, like as I started to get good at this and understand kind of where my mastery was and like really listening, and then being able to connect people with places that were like more, it was more of listening turned into intuition and then turned into the right place. It was like all of that stuff was so satisfying because I was like, oh my God, this is doing something for me. Like this is healing something inside of me, to like heal my broken home, you know? And then as I got married and everything else, I was like, wow, there's just something so deeply satisfying. It's more of a mission than helping people find home. It happens to be through real estate, right? Like, but it's not about the real estate. It's about the people.
Well, it's about the stability. Like you're selling stability when you're talking your way through everything you went through and what real estate means to you. It really does mean something more than what the world thinks it means, because the world watches reality TV. They think Selling Sunset's real. They think HGTV is real, but you never see that emotional connection that you're describing right there because it's too big for TV. So I'm so curious, when you transition from rentals to sales, which is for a lot of people, it's an organic move. Did you feel like you had an advantage as a sales agent because of your rental experience, because it gave you the knowledge of all those buildings and communities around the city? Or what do you think that was the best, what was the best learning experience you had in the rental side that translated to the sales side?
No one's ever asked that question. It's a really good one. Yes, I was seeing like 20 apartments a day sometimes. So you just multiply that times 7, because I was working 7 days a week. And then I was seeing 500 apartments a month, right? 6,000 apartments a year. And doing that day in, day out, the way my brain works, it's like I could file everything away into like little boxes. You know, if someone said, oh, I live, you know, and I see as area, even to this day, I see an area code. I think, oh, that's where this college was that I used to call on. And everything kind of works in that way. So I'd say, oh, I'd be at a cocktail party. Oh, I live at the corner. I live at this, because here, like, oh, I live at 83rd and 2nd Avenue. They'll like give the street name and then the avenue. I'm like, oh, do you live at this corner, this corner, this corner, this corner? It became like a cocktail party trick almost. So it gave me a really good foundation of the city, but it was such a hustle. Mm-hmm. Like people think, oh, New York City real estate's so competitive, but like it was such it was like getting into like a warm bath when I was doing sales, because the pace was you're building trust. You know, it's not, you're not selling, there was about the transaction. Now it's about the people in the relationship. And so it was like this great feeling. This is what I want to do. And I was prepared, and I could appreciate how important it was to build the relationship, because I knew how to do the transaction. I knew I could figure out whatever I needed to do the transaction. And I'd done like 120 rental deals or something in that first year. No one told me that was a lot. I just was like, go, go, go. I needed to pay my rent. I needed to figure out how to make it myself so I could live here, you know? And so once I kind of got to a place where I had a pipeline of some kind, was like, you know, that first 2 years was really working so hard, and it doesn't just come to you. But yeah, it helped me appreciate how valuable having relationships was. And like, it was always, how do I nurture relationships and how do I help people in a more real way? Because that always led to more business.
Well, you were prepared to help them when you found them. I think what you're describing is you built muscle memory because you were able to see and learn and experience those things. So you built up the muscle memory, which built your foundation. But, in the music business, you call that paying your dues. And I think my favorite artist of all time, who probably paid more dues than anybody else, was Alison Krauss. If you know her from the bluegrass world, sure. She played so many years of really being unappreciated and unknown before she finally hits it, so many years into her career. And she never complained about it, because she said that built all the relationships that were glad to bring her back once she really hit her stride with Union Station. But you think about that corner description you gave. So you meet somebody at a networking event, cocktail hour, they give their location, all 4 of the corners. You didn't just give them some information, you gave them this immense amount of comfort. And I think we forget how much comfort knowledge can give somebody, because they're like, oh, my corner, where I live. And when you think about that connection of the stability of real estate and the comfort your knowledge gave them, well, no wonder they use you as their agent, because you didn't just fake it and say, oh, well, yeah, I know that corner. You're like, no, this one, or this one. Why would they ever talk to anybody else ever again?
Yeah, there's market knowledge. I tell people all the time, if you have some free time, there's always something to do to learn. Like when I leave here, where am I going? I'm going to a new development on 86th Street on the east side that's coming up. I can see it being built. I haven't been in there yet, and I want to see what it's about, because I want to know what's going on. What's going on?
I'm sitting here with my new construction magazine that just got dropped off to see if there's any neighborhoods that I haven't visited yet. And I'm 23 years in, you're 20 years in. You can't stop learning. There's always something new that we're supposed to be aware of, and can't even catch up with it, but you can try.
I hear this sometimes, that I'll be in negotiation with somebody on the other side of a transaction and say, well, I've been a broker for 30 years and whatever. And I'm thinking,
is there a class that you took on the internet that's been good for you? I want to hear all about it.
Yes. Okay. So I am in the progress of taking your How to Dominate During a Recession class. And oh my gosh, it's just absolutely the best. It's really helpful to understand and to know what it was like during the other recession, and to how to proceed. But also at the same time, in the back of your mind, remembering that every recession is not the same. So you have to be prepared, but you have to be flexible. So understanding, educating during this downtime in our market, educate, getting on top of that, and being prepared. So, take as many classes as you can, get involved with your association. Just really, diving in has been, I'm so excited to get it completed. But it's a great class. Highly
glad that you're finding it helpful. And I love what you said too, that every recession is different, because whether the media wants to call it one or not, we know the economy is not feeling perfect right now. And when things feel that's when we do more education for ourselves, so we can give that education to our clients. And so thank you for those kind words. I can't wait to get the full review when you finish it. And by the way, friends, if you follow the link here, we might have a discount code to get you involved in that class as well. So you can join Mackenzie and get some education in your yoga pants in the evenings while you see clients during the day. So thank you for that kind recommendation. I'm so glad you're enjoying the class.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You can be a broker for 30 days and have more curiosity and have more passion to learn. And if you stop being curious about the real estate market, it will pass you by. And you could be, I told somebody this yesterday, that sometimes, as much as I want to grow market share and when the market's down and but sometimes we'll pitch a building and they'll say, have you ever done business in this building? And I'll say, no, I haven't. But what I've done is 50 transactions in your neighborhood, and half of our business is with buyers today. The seasoned person who's done all the business in that building may be overpricing your apartment, because their understanding of it is 3 or 4 years old in a different market. I can tell you what's going on now. I can tell you what somebody may not be willing to tell you now about how it is. And obviously, I want to have great foundational knowledge in every single property, and I do, in these buildings. But at the same time, you have to approach relationship building and every property with kind of a fresh set of eyes if you can.
Because real estate is at its core so multifaceted. So it's all of those things. And when you mention that, the 30-year broker, which you and I are getting too close to that, let's call it the 40-year broker. So the 40-year broker who waves around their experience. My dad, who is retired from real estate, always said there's a difference between a realtor with 40 years experience and a realtor with 1 year experience times 40. And that's exactly what you're describing there, is the relevance in the current market. And frankly, it's muscle memory again, because if you've sold more properties than somebody else. By nature, you've done the paperwork more recently and you're up to date on the state regulations and any changes there. You know what consumer behavior is looking like, because our consumer behavior has moved a lot in the last 20 years. And I know that your psychology degree comes in handy a lot in real estate as we watch people behave differently when it comes to financial transactions right now, especially in an increasingly expensive market. They can get really tangled up. And so we have to be sure that we're really current and relevant with our information.
Sure. Yeah. It's a psych. I like to say, I'm kind of I'm a therapist. First.
Without
first,
a license, there's an asterisk.
I have a license, but
Oh,
not no.
The rest of y'all don't have one.
No. I worked for years when I first moved from my first company, which was called City Habitats, to the second company, which is called Corcoran, which is it was founded by Barbara Corcoran, who everybody seems to know. She had already sold the business by the time I was there. But the woman, I worked on a team for a few years, and my team leader was a psychologist. She was a psychologist, first before she got into real estate. And I know how much that really helped her navigate, because we find people at their absolute most stressed out, and it doesn't matter how old they are. They can be first-time buyers, but if they've been, if on average people stay in a home for 13 years, the median amount of years that they're in that property are 13 years. They really come at it, with whoever they are now, and they're scared or they're stressed. It's just so much psychology to navigate.
There is. I'm just being difficult because too many agents call themselves therapists and counselors and don't have a license or a paper for that. So you can say,
I don't have a piece of paper designated.
We operate like them sometimes, and we understand their space because of what you're describing there. So just make sure, people, that y'all are advertising yourselves accurately. Okay, so Scott, obviously we could ramble on for ages about all these ins and outs, but our show, of course, is the crazy things that we've seen in real estate. And if you listen to the show, some of them are sad, some are happy, some are crazy, some are scary, and some are just kind of heartfelt. So I'd love to know what you've brought to the show today that you've seen in conducting real estate, and what was what's that moment in New York City real estate?
I think the moment that really created the most in New York uniquely compared to the rest of New York, of the United States real estate market, was COVID-19. That in New York, we were completely shut down for 3 months, and it threw our market off substantially. But I'm thinking about one particular buyer who navigated this. We started working together before, and we were in contract to buy a big penthouse in a new development on the west side of Manhattan, and they called me. This is not what a lot of New York City real estate agents do, but I rented an RV during COVID, and my wife and our 3 kids and I drove from New York City all the way to New Orleans and back. That was what we did in the summer, because I wanted to visit my family. We want to make sure before vaccines, we didn't, accidentally get them sick, et cetera. And I'm driving through the mountains of West Virginia, and I get a call from this, and this is like a $15 million penthouse. So it was a big deal to me. And I was navigating. It took us about 3 months just to negotiate the contract in the first place. And they called me and said, Scott, we want to get out of the contract. They were completely worried that the New York City market was going to fall apart. And I heard them say that, and I'm behind the wheel of a 30+ foot, vehicle, not wanting to drive off a mountainside. And I will say, that I was just, okay, Scott, just stay calm here and say, okay, I understand. I asked them a few questions about what were they thinking about. There was just so much uncertainty. Right. And I will say, fast forward, there was a lot of talk about what are the construction issues. So I don't want to give away the end of the story, but I will say that they were thinking of all the ways that they could get out of it. I knew in their heart of hearts, this was their psychology getting in the way. I mean, these are super high power people doing big things in the world. I can't talk about I don't kiss and tell, but These are people who know themselves. And yet even the most high performing people in the country, who they all need somewhere to live and they want to have a place that represents who they are in that moment. And I knew that this was more turbulence than actually wanting to get out of the deal. So, okay, there's some construction, I put quote, air quotes, construction defects that we had to fix. And all of the different ways they were thinking about how to put pressure on the developer to deliver the very best product. And fast forward about a year and a half, it was never about getting out of the deal. It was about feeling heard, that their concerns were heard. And ultimately, they closed in August about 2 years ago. And they said to me, I got an email from the wife. She said, Scott, this deal would not have happened without you. We are so grateful. Thank you for sticking, listening to us and just letting us work our way through this. So the unseasoned person might have just had a complete freak out, called the broker and said the deal's off. And then the buyers were going to lose probably a couple $1 million of their down payment. And then things would have maybe ended up in court, right? And it would have just gotten ugly. Rather, it was like, okay, I hear you. Let's understand what your concerns are. And this was really about them. I know some people say, oh, Scott, you were just trying to keep your commission. Of course, you're trying to keep this alive. But you know what? I know what they wanted. We looked at hundreds, 100 apartments to see what the right space was, townhouses and big apartments. And this was perfect for them. And it was just, okay, let's work through it. And that was, and you kind of shrink that purchase price down to like $5 million. And you have buyers who were also, I've had buyer in the middle of COVID who canceled 3 different deals because they were so nervous that they just were not trusting people. We would get a contract out and they would walk away. We get an accepted offer and a contract out, they would walk away. And even at the end, I was managing their trust issues. They just thought everybody was out to get them. And when you've got $20 or $30 million in the bank and no one is telling you that you're acting out of this mistrust, I want to say you're acting crazy, right? But we'll go into that later, that no one's willing to tell them the truth. Hey, this is you. Your issues around trust are making other people not trust you. And eventually we found a beautiful apartment and it was a great deal. But boy, that was like that one took even longer. That took 5 years to put it together because, again, the value of a buyer agent is to sort of be able to navigate through all of that. So I was not successful in that case, getting them to a finish line on 3 different deals. They would just walk away. But eventually we got there, right?
What you're talking about is that the value of the buyer agent is as much emotional as it is transactional and the mechanics of the deal. And I'm trying to think here if we ever really hear training for brand new agents that reminds them not to knee jerk, because we see that all the time, especially when agents are in between the 2 pressure points of the listing agents yelling and their clients are yelling, and then they pop off when really that patience of saying, let's think our way through this. Let's make sure this is really what you want to do and how you want to be perceived, help somebody make that really good decision for the future. But popping off is, well, I tell my teenagers that all the time, that it's never going to solve something when you knee jerk. And we've got to think about that in real estate, especially as it gets more and more, tenuous in some markets. There's just some markets that are feeling pressure more than others. And the client needs to think through the long-term implications. But I love the other thing you actually kind of mentioned there is how hard it might be for somebody to tell the truth to somebody who's wealthy, because maybe they've got a perception in their mind that person is somehow different than they are because of what's in their bank account. But humans are humans, and we all crave trust, and we all crave somebody to trust. That honest feedback is probably one of your most critical characteristics as a buyer representative, because you've got to be able to say to them, my dad trained me. I always use my dad as an example because the question he trained me to ask was, do I have your permission to be honest with you? And they'll always say yes. And then that also helps level the playing field if somebody is wealthier than you are. So if you're an agent watching this and you've never prospected in a luxury area before because you feel like those people are out of your league, or you're looking at them as somewhat different, just remember, you could be the only agent that's willing to speak truth to them and to help them look at things from all the angles. It's such an interesting little thing that you pipe off there with one little sentence that's needs to be added to our agent training, I think.
I love that. I love that phrase. I'm going to totally steal that. Do I have permission to be honest with you? I sometimes will tell agents, look, if you're having a hard time wrapping your head around this, just take away a zero. Take a zero away, just remove a zero.
Okay, I'll steal that. You can have my dad's question. I'm stealing the zero thing.
Just take away a zero. And the other, and I guess I'm fond of movie quotes, and I'm also fond of butchering movie quotes. So the other one is the in Notting Hill, when Julia Roberts' character kind of shows up at Hugh Grant's doorstep, and she's like, "Look, I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, hoping that she'll love him." And I'm sure I'm butchering the quote, but the idea is like, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank. At the end, you're looking for a house that you love. And all I want to do as their representative is make sure that we make it happen. And people will say, oh, if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to be upset. And, they're protecting and protecting and protecting. And then if you lose the bidding war or you fumble it, you watch out how quickly they're going to blame you for not making it happen, for not telling the truth, for not saying, look, we need to step up here. We need to do this. I strongly recommend, that we do X, Y, or Z. You've got to be comfortable in the seat of being the advisor and not just the order taker, right? Yeah.
Well, would you like another one of my dad's magic questions for that?
Come on, let's bring it.
You're ready for it. Huh? So my dad told me to ask this in multiple offers, and it was, will you throw up if you lose this property over $1,000? And it's such a visceral reaction that people have to that, but he needs them to, again, break that wall down so they can decide. And I've heard people that like, well, actually, if I lost it over $1,000, I would throw up. I'd be angry. I'm like, okay, if that's the situation, then we change your bid, because losing it over $1,000 sucks. Now, what if you lose it over 10? Oh, I won't be upset at all. Okay, then now you've set your own parameters. And so it's less of us being pushy or used car salesmen, as we're often referenced, and more about helping people navigate it themselves by using good questions and good language, which is what a good real estate professional does.
Yeah, I think in my case, I have to add a zero in those conversations, right? Because we're talking.
I work with normal people. You work with penthouses, so you can say, would you be upset if you lost it over 50,000? How about that?
Or 100, or something like that.
I can't really think about those numbers, but that's okay. That's why we have different markets in the U.S. By the way, there is no national real estate market. This is the example of why.
There you go. Yeah, it's. And by the way, there's so many times when I tell people, I could point out 100 emails, in the last week where I'm like, that's not for you. I know you, that's not your place. That's not going to be for you. You don't like it. And it's because the building, there are any number of reasons why it may not be a good fit, but I've seen it. It ain't your place. And that's okay. And the more you say no, sometimes the more, you're going to be trusted, because I'm not just trying to make the sale. Like it's just too long. These relationships I'm building over years and years and years. And if it ain't this one, it's the next one. I've got to be very, I think they should teach meditation in new broker training. My gosh,
Couldn't be a bad thing.
The tendency, the text message back and forth, and like they get sucked into like these back and forth conversations. And so often I'm like, what's a phone call? What's a real-time conversation? How do you text? I mean, information's great, but there are so many times you're like, I'm just going to put this to bed. And there are like ways to snooze your emails, so you're not staring at them, like itching you so that you have to answer them. Like, I'm doing this tomorrow morning with fresh set eyes.
Right. When they get the best of you, so that you can give them the best of what they're looking for, which is the end goal.
Yeah. Or look, sometimes some buyers or sellers, they're just not open at certain times of the day. I've had sellers who are really in bad shape at 6:00 at night. And I've had, some that are more open at 6:00 at night. Same goes for the morning. Sometimes people have their coffee and they want to bite your head off. And sometimes they've had their coffee and they're like more open.
Good morning.
Hey, how you doing? I'm ready to listen to you now.
All right, Scott. So if somebody's looking for an amazing professional in New York City, right there near the finish line, how do they best find you and your services?
Okay. They can go to, of course, they can just Google Scott Harris, Brown Harris Stevens, and they can find us. They can go to Harris Residential to the website, which is where they can find me most easily, or they can hop on LinkedIn and look at Scott Harris and follow me. And they're going to get a lot of real estate advice, information about the New York City market and buyer and seller behavior. That's probably where I'm the most active. They go on Instagram. They can find us at Harris Residential as well, or me, Scott Harris. Scott, I think it's Scotty Harris, actually, IE. But those are
Scotty, like the dog?
Yep, like the dog, IE.
Do you have a Scotty dog?
No, but we had a Schnauzer growing up. That was as close as we got to Scotty dogs. But I had a lot of, my mom always used to buy me the black Scotty dog stuff. She always, so I that was fun to have as a kid.
Oh, well, that's one of the tokens in Monopoly. So I think there's a whole new marketing campaign that you could be building around Monopoly being real estate, the Scotty token.
Huh. I've never put this together.
So what'd you pick, the top hat or the limo? What were you driving around the board? You were a top hat guy, weren't you? I mean, obviously. On your Warby Parker glasses. I mean, I can tell.
I don't remember what was my regular token in Monopoly. I don't remember. I
smell a whole marketing thing coming here with buyer and seller behaviors on who you are as a client in real estate. Depends on which token you picked in Monopoly. This could be the best video ever. And I never thought about it before.
That's very cool.
Well, if I make one, I'll tag you. And if you make one, tag me.
That sounds like a great idea. I'm gonna look into this right away. We don't have to play Monopoly, just like we don't have to watch reality TV because we know how the business is actually happening, right?
But with Thanksgiving coming up, every family needs a good Monopoly war. So it's a great time to bust it out and let your kids fight amongst themselves about rents.
I was talking to my 7-year-old about rents. I said, "Do you know what renting means?" And we were starting to have that conversation. He's a pretty smart kid. He understood.
I mean, our kids are going to hear it just like you and I. You heard it growing up. I heard it growing up. So now we just have to make sure we scale that out there so more of the young people will have a good understanding of why they should aim for what we do.
There you go.
Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed our conversation and written myself some notes down here, and I'm very grateful for that every time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. If you guys like what Scott had to say, you have questions about the New York market or anything about he said, drop a comment here below. Subscribe for more, and we'll include all of the contact information in the show notes for this episode. So if you were sweating to the oldies, don't worry about it. We got you covered. Most importantly, come back and we'll see you next time. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available in all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.